There are these posts I see everywhere, and maybe you've seen it or something similar too. It goes like this: narcissists care more about being kind to strangers than their own family. They can be charming and generous in public, but behind closed doors, they're cold, dismissive, even cruel. And honestly, many of us can relate, right? Because when you're in that experience, it really does feel like only someone who doesn't think I'm worth being kind to would treat me like this. It feels personal, like you've been singled out as the one person who doesn't get the version of them everyone else gets. Believe me, I used to sit there and wonder, am I not as fun, not as interesting, not as special or important as everyone else? Because when you're the one experiencing it, the common denominator always feels like you. And there's no version of us in those moments that wouldn't ask, what about me isn't good enough for the people who mean the most to me? And that's exactly why I want to start here, because from a healthy, emotional, grounded perspective, that would be the logical conclusion. See, your brain is trying to make meaning of their behavior based on how you relate to the world. But here's the disconnect: we're trying to interpret their behavior through our lens, with emotional depth, reciprocity, and connection. And that's not the system they're operating from. So the conclusion we land on, no matter how real it feels, is actually inaccurate, because the truth is, it's not about strangers versus you. So the part that feels personal actually isn't personal. We've been applying relational logic to someone who does not operate relationally. I used to ask, isn't it meaningful to see me smile too? Just like when you make others smile? But when we zoom out and look at people with strong narcissistic traits or narcissistic personality patterns, what we're really seeing is not a hierarchy of who matters more. It's something else entirely. It's a system built around image management, emotional limitation, and avoidance of internal shame. And that changes everything about how their behavior actually works. Because it's not you're less valuable than strangers. It's more like strangers require less emotional depth, less consistency, and less vulnerability. So what happens? They can perform, they can be charming, helpful, even generous, and then walk away without consequence. It's low risk and low exposure, and it gives them exactly what they're actually seeking: positive reflection, approval, admiration, and a temporary feeling of being okay. But it's not connection, it's performance. Now compare that with intimate partners or family. This is where things get complicated because closeness demands something entirely different: consistency, emotional accountability, the ability to repair rupture, as well as being seen and remembered over time, not just in moments. And that's where their system starts to strain, because real connection requires emotional capacities they don't consistently have access to. So instead of connections deepening, what often happens is closeness triggers exposure, then exposure triggers shame, and then shame triggers defense, which can look like coldness, blame shifting, irritability, or emotional shutdown. Close relationships require a level of emotional depth they can't reliably sustain. We're the ones who see them over time, the full picture, the inconsistencies, the mistakes, and the moments when they're not the version of themselves they want to project to everyone else. We become a living memory of that. And real relationships don't just expect one good moment, right? They require consistency, not just a performance of fun or kindness, but the ability to share the good moments, work through the challenges, and show up that way over and over again. And that level of depth, they're not equipped to accommodate it. And this is where a lot of survivors get stuck, because the brain naturally goes, if they can be kind to others, why not me? And understandably, our painful conclusion becomes, it's because I don't matter. The story I told myself was, it matters to them that other people feel happy and supported, and I just didn't matter enough to be treated the same way. But that's where the distortion happens, because what you're interpreting as selective care is often performance versus intimacy. It's not value assignment or worth being distributed unevenly like a reward system. So why does public behavior look so different? Well, in public, there's structure and clarity. There's a role to play, and there's distance. They can regulate themselves through performance because nothing is being asked of them emotionally in return. But in private, that structure disappears. They're suddenly expected to show up as a living, feeling human being, one who is emotionally present, accountable, and relationally engaged. And what shows up instead is the internal reality like emotional overwhelm, shame sensitivity, fear of exposure or inadequacy, and difficulty sustaining reciprocal emotional presence, for which they don't have strong tools to manage. So the switch people describe isn't always about calculated cruelty, it's often about what environment requires emotional depth versus what environment allows performance. And let me be clear, we're not excusing behavior. I'm not here to soften harm or explain it away, because regardless of the psychology underneath it, the impact on you is real. When someone close to us consistently shows up one way with the world and a completely different way with us, our brains are wired to make that mean something about us. It's our minds trying to create order out of something that feels inconsistent, cold, confusing, and unfair. And it hurts. It can absolutely shape how you see yourself if you don't step back and reframe what's actually happening. But understanding the mechanics matters because otherwise we internalize it. We turn it into I'm not enough, I'm hard to love, and I don't deserve kindness or effort. And because of their limited capacity for self reflection and empathy, they're often far more focused on managing their image and avoiding shame than they are on how their behavior impacts others. So those conclusions we end up internalizing aren't even part of their equation. We're not being evaluated the way we think we are or measured against other people. In a lot of cases, we're not even consciously considered at all. We're just collateral damage in a system that's centered around self protection, not mutual connection. So here's what I want you to hold on to. You're not being compared to strangers or ranked in some emotional hierarchy. What you're seeing is not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of someone's limited capacity for consistent emotional closeness and deep connection. Because real connection includes accountability, emotional presence over time, repair when things go wrong, and mutual recognition of each other's humanity. When those things are missing, what you're experiencing isn't a you problem. It's a mismatch between what you deserve in connection and what the other person can actually offer. And that gap will always feel confusing until you stop personalizing it. So the next time you find yourself asking, why do they treat everyone else better than me? I want you to follow it up with, what am I interpreting as love that is actually just performance? Because once you can see the difference between the two, you stop expecting clarity from someone who was never operating from depth in the first place, and you start returning to something real and far more meaningful: your own sense of reality, your own emotional safety, and your right to expect consistency in the places where it matters most. All right, if you subscribe to my Choose You Pocket Coaching, which is free, you'll receive the breakdown including how to apply what I shared here in real life in your email. All my links are in the description below. And if you know someone who can benefit from the information covered, please feel free to share. I'm Carmen Sakurai, and until next time, choose you.